Daf Yomi, Tractate, Avodah Zarah, page 51b, top of the page, with the words Adkan hu medaber b'kadoshim shehi k'dishan b'shat isu ha-ba'mot v'yikrivan b'shat isu ha-ba'mot. The verse states, any man slaughters an ox outside the camp and to the entrance of the tent of meeting, he did not bring it to sacrifice an offering to the Lord. Leviticus 17:3 and 4. Until this point, the verse is speaking about sacrificial animals that one consecrated during a period when the prohibition of sacrificing offerings on private altars was in effect, after the tabernacle was erected, and then he also sacrificed them during a period when the prohibition of sacrificing on private altars was in effect. שערי עון שנאמר שנאמר ולפתח המועד לא הביאו וגומר עונש שמענו עזר מנין תמיד לומר פן תעלה עונתך. This is apparent as the punishment for sacrificing them stated in the verse, as it is stated, and to the entrance of the tent of meeting he did not bring it, to sacrifice an offering to the Lord for the tabernacle of the Lord, that a man shall be cut off from among his people. Leviticus 17:4. We have heard from that verse the punishment, but with regard to the prohibition against sacrificing on a private altar, from where is it derived? The verse states, take heed to yourself, lest you offer up your burnt offerings in every place that you see. Deuteronomy 12:13. The Gemara comments, and this is in accordance with the principle that Rabbi Avin said, that Rabbi Elah says. As Rabbi Avin says, Rabbi Elah says, wherever it is stated beware, lest, or do not, this is nothing other than a prohibition. מכאן ואילך הוא מדבר בקדושים שהקדישם בש"ס יתר ובמוס ויקרבן בש"ס איסור הבמוס. The Braita continues, from that point onward, the verse is speaking about sacrificial animals that one consecrated during a period when there was permission to sacrifice offerings on private altars before the tabernacle was erected, and then one sacrificed them outside the tabernacle during a period when the prohibition of sacrificing on private altars was in effect. שנאמר, למען שיביאו בני ישראל זבחיהם אשר הם לא עברים. שיתערתי לך כבר על פני השדה מלמד שכל הזוהר בבמה. I just realized that Bama is like Behema, pretty close. Bama b'shas Yisrael Bamos. Habamot is Behemot. Ma'ale alav hakatov ki'ilu hu zoveach al bnei hasadeh. This is apparent, as it is stated, in order that the children of Israel shall bring their sacrifices, which they slaughter upon the open field, that they shall bring them to the Lord, to the entrance of the tent of meeting. Leviticus 17:5, the phrase there, sacrifices which they slaughter, is into referring to offerings that I have previously permitted you to slaughter on the private altars. This verse teaches that those offerings may now be sacrificed only inside the tabernacle. The phrase upon the open field teaches that in the case of anyone who slaughters an offering on a private altar during a period when the prohibition of sacrificing on private altars is in effect, even if he sacrifices the offering to God, the verse ascribes to him blame as if he is slaughtering it upon the open field in idolatrous worship. The verse continues, that they shall bring them to the Lord. This is a positive mitzvah, to sacrifice even offerings that were consecrated before the tabernacle was erected in the wilderness. And from where is it derived that there is a prohibition against sacrificing them outside the tabernacle? The verse states, and they shall not slaughter their offerings any more to the Seirim, after whom they have gone astray. This shall be to them an eternal statute throughout their generations. Leviticus 17:7. Yachol yehei anush כרת, תלמוד לומר חוקת עולם תהיה זאת להם ולא אחרת להם. One might have thought that sacrificing these offerings outside the tabernacle would be punishable by karet, as this is the halacha with regard to offerings consecrated after the tabernacle was consecrated. Therefore, the verse states, this shall be to them an eternal statute throughout their generations. Leviticus 17:7. One can infer from this verse that this, the punishment for transgressing a positive mitzvah and a prohibition, applies to them, but no other punishment applies to them. In any event, the Braita interprets the verse, and they shall not slaughter their offerings any more to the Zeirim, as prohibiting sacrificing to God on private altars, not as Rabbi Elazar interpreted it, as prohibiting the worship of an idol in an atypical manner. Rava said, one may derive both halachot from the verse, as the term "and they shall not" can be interpreted as referring to two distinct prohibitions. Read into the verse, "and they shall not slaughter," which is interpreted as prohibiting offerings to God on private altars, and also read into the verse, "and they shall not slaughter any more to the Zeirim," which is interpreted as prohibiting the worship of an idol in an atypical manner. And that's that. New Mishnah. Matzah berosh shemois k'sus hakelim harei elu mutarim hakilei anavim ve'atara shel sheva levin mishmanos le'ezlatos v'chol davar she'yotze karev alav mizbeach. As Mishnah says, if one found money, a garment, or vessels at the head of Mercury, these are permitted. If one found vine branches laden with clusters of grapes, or wreaths made of stalks, or containers of wine, oil, or flour, or any other item, the likes of which is sacrificed on the altar, there it is prohibited. That's the Mishnah. Now for the Talmud. Talmud says, "Menahani mili." Amar Rav Chia bar Yosef Amar Rav Oshaya כתוב אחד אומר ותראו את שיקוציהם ואת גלוליהם עץ ואבן כסף וזהב אשר עמהם וכתוב אחד אומר לא תחמוד כסף וזהב עליהם הכיצד. The Gemara says, the Mishnah teaches that money, clothing, or vessels found at the head of the idol are not forbidden. The Gemara asks, from where are these matters derived? Rav Chia bar Yosef says that Rabbi Yehoshua says, one verse states, "And you have seen their detestable things in their idols, wood and stone, silver and gold, which are with them." Deuteronomy 29:16. And one verse states, "You shall not covet the silver or the gold that is on them, nor take it for yourself." Deuteronomy 7:25. How can these texts be reconciled? The second verse mentions the prohibition of only silver and gold, whereas the verse also mentions wood and stone. Imahem dum yali alehem davar shel goy asur she'enu shel goy noi. I think it's noi, not goy, noi. דבר שנוי ושאינו שנוי מות אף עמהם דבר שנוי אסור ושאינו שנוי בוטל. The Gemara answers, this teaches that the prohibition with regard to those items that are with them, meaning those found next to their idols, is similar to the prohibition with regard to those items that are on them, just as with regard to those items that are on the idols. A decorative item, meaning, for example, silver or gold, is prohibited, but that which is not a non-decorative item is permitted. So too, with regard to those items that are with the idols, a decorative item is prohibited, and that which is not a decorative item is permitted. Ema aleihem dumya dimahem ma imahem kol shimahem af aleihem kol shalemim ken Lo yamar eleihem. The Gemara challenges, but one could say to the contrary, that the prohibition with regard to those items that are on them is similar to the prohibition with regard to those items that are with them, just as with regard to those items that are with the idols, everything that's found with them is included in the prohibition. As the first mentions wood and stone, which are not decorative items, so too, with regard to those items that are on the idols, everything that is on them is forbidden. The Gemara explains, if so, the verse should not state the prohibition with regard to the items that are on the idols, as it may be inferred as a fortiori from the prohibition, by Kal V'chomer, that from the prohibition with regard to the items that are found next to them. Ma'os, davar shel noi, hu, amal ve'Rabbi v'kizkeshur v'tzului la v'tzavaroi. The Gemara challenges, the Mishnah teaches that money that is found at the head of the idol is permitted. This is difficult, as money is a decorative item, because it can be. The school of Yana say the ruling of the Mishnah is not stated with regard to a case where coins are placed on the idol in order to adorn it. Rather, the ruling of the Mishnah is stated with regard to a case where the money is inside a purse that is tied onto the idol and suspended from its neck for safekeeping, or left there as payment for the priests. Kesus davar shenoihu amre dever b'yanai v'kesus mikupeles umenachas lo al rosho kli davar shenoihu amrav papa desechifa le mashkilta areshe. The Gemara challenges, the Mishnah teaches that a garment found at the head of the idol is permitted. This is difficult, as a garment is a decorative item. The school of Yana say the ruling of the Mishnah is not stated with regard to a garment that was placed on the idol in order to adorn it. Rather, the ruling of the Mishnah is stated with regard to a garment that is folded and placed upon the head of the idol. The Gemara challenges, the Mishnah teaches that vessels found at the head of the idol are permitted. This is difficult, as a vessel is a decorative item. Papa said the Mishnah is referring to where a pot is placed upside down upon the head of the idol, in which case it does not serve as a decoration. Amaravasi b'achia, Amaravasi b'achia, lai 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 lai. Amaravasi b'achia. Okay, kol shehu lifnim min kilkalin, afilu mayim melach asur, חוץ לקלקלין דבר שאינו אסור ושאינו שאינו מותר. אמר רבי יוסי בר חנינא נקטינא נן קלקלין לא לברו ולא למקוליס. Ravasi Barchia says any item that is found within the inner partitions that surround the idol, even water or salt, is prohibited, as it is assumed to be an offering brought in idolatrous worship. With regard to items that are found outside the partitions, a decorative item is prohibited, but that which is not decorated, a decorative object, is permitted. Rabbi Yossi Bar Hanina says, we have a tradition that the halacha with regard to the partitions applies neither to peor nor to mercury. The mine, lemad afilu panim kechus dami v'shori, hashta peoreim mafrin kame, mayim umelach lo makrevin le. The Gemara asks, with regard to what Allah has stated, if we say this means that with regard to peor and mercury, even items that are found inside the partitions are treated like those that are found inside the partitions, and they are permitted. This is difficult. Now, peor is worshipped by defecating before it. Even excrement is offered to peor. Is it possible that its worshippers do not sacrifice water and salt to it? Although water and salt are not generally offered to an idol, in the case of peor, they certainly can be. Rather, Rabbi Yossi Bar Hanina means that with regard to peor and mercury, even items that are found outside the partitions are treated like those that are found inside the partitions, and they are prohibited even if they are not decorative items. And now for a new Mishnah. Avodah Zarah shehayala gina umerchatz ne'enin mehen shelo betova v'nen ben betova היה שלה ושל אחרים, להן מהן בין בטובה ובין שלא בטובה. Avodah Zarah shenach yasur miyad, v'shel Yisrael ein asura ad sheteba. Mishnah. In the case of an object of idol worship that had a garden or a bathhouse, one may derive benefit from them when it is not to the advantage of the idol worship, meaning when he does not pay for his use. But one may not derive benefit from them when it is to their advantage, meaning if one is required to pay for his use. If the garden or bathhouse belongs jointly to the place of idol worship and to others, one may derive benefit from them, both when it is to their advantage and when it is not to their advantage. A Gentile's object of idol worship is prohibited immediately, meaning as soon as it is fashioned for that purpose, but a Jew's object of idol worship is not prohibited until it is actually worshipped. And that's the Mishnah. The Gemara says, Amar Abai b'tova, b'tovat komarin, shelo b'tovat komarin, le'apoke tovat ovdeha tishavi. Abai says the case where use of the garden or bathhouse is to the financial advantage of the idol worship is referring to a case where it is to the financial advantage of the priests, the komarim, to receive payment for the use of the garden or bathhouse. The case where it is not to their financial advantage is referring to a case where it is not to the financial advantage of the priests. This is the exclusion of the situation where using the facility is not only to the financial advantage of the idol worshippers, in which case one is permitted to derive benefit from them. Hayeshla v'shelachem nehena mehem b'tova, v'shelo b'tova, Amar Abai b'tova b'tovat acherim, shelo b'tovat koma. The Gemara comments, these are those who teach. There are those who teach by a statement with regard to the latter clause of the Mishnah. If the garden or bathhouse belongs to the place of idol worship and to others, one may derive benefit from them both when it is to their advantage and when it is not to their advantage. Abai says the term when it is to their advantage is referring to a case where it is to the financial advantage of the other owners, while the term when it is not to their advantage is referring to a case where it is not to the financial advantage of the priests. But if the use of the place is the financial advantage of the priests, one may not derive benefit from the place. Man demas nirse b'kol shekeneresha, uman demas niresha aval be'asefa kiyon yikachem adeh, afilu b'tovas komarina mishaver dami. The Gemara notes, according to the one who teaches Abai's statement with regard to the case presented in the latter clause of the Mishnah, where the garden or bathhouse is only partially owned by the place of idol worship, all the more so does this statement apply to the case presented in the final clause of the Mishnah, where the garden or the bathhouse is owned exclusively by the place of idol worship. But according to the one who teaches Abai's statement with regard to the case presented in the first clause, Abai's statement applies only to that case. But with regards to the case presented in the latter clause, since there are others who own the place together with the place of idol worship, even the use of the garden or the bathhouse is to the financial advantage of the priest is permitted. Avodah Zarah, she'enochi asura miyad, mazni sedmani Rabbi Kivahi, Tanya, abet abdun, kol ha-mekomot, asher avdu sham hagoyim. B'chelim, she'nishtamshu bohen l'avodah zareh, hakatuv medaber. Mishnah teaches that Gentiles' object of idol worship is prohibited immediately, as soon as it's fashioned for that purpose. The Gemara asks, whose opinion is expressed in the Mishnah? The Gemara answers, is the opinion of Rabbi Kiva. As it is taught in the Braita, you shall destroy all the places where the nations that you are to dispossess serve their gods, upon the high mountains and upon the hills, and under every leafy tree. Deuteronomy 12:2. The verse is speaking of vessels that were used by the Gentiles for idol worship. Yachoil asaum velo gemarum lo hevium. Hevium lo nishtamshu bohen yachal yehu asurim. Tamen lamar אשר עבדו שם הגויים, שאין אסורים עד שיעבדו. מכאן אמרו, Avodah Zarah שלנח לי, אין אסורה עד שתעבד, ושישכר אסור מיד דברי חרי ישמעאל. One might have thought the vessels are prohibited even if the Gentiles fashioned them, but did not completed them, but did not bring them to the idol, or brought them to the idol, but did not use them for idolatrous worship. Might one have thought that in these cases the vessels are prohibited? The verse states, where the nations that you are to dispossess serve their idols, Deuteronomy 12:2. This indicates that the vessels are not prohibited until they are used for worship. It is from here that the sages stated, a Gentile's object of idol worship is not prohibited until it is worshipped, but a Jew's object of idol worship is prohibited immediately. This is the statement of Rabbi Ishmael, Rabbi Kiva Amer. חילוף הדברים, Avodah Zarah שלנח לי אסור מיד, ושישראל עד שתעבד. Rabbi Kiva says the matters are reversed. A Gentile's object of idol worship is prohibited immediately, but a Jew's object of idol worship is not forbidden until it is worshipped. The mission is therefore in accordance to the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. אמר מר, בכלים שנשתמשו בהן לעבודה זרה, הכתוב מדבר. המקומות כתיב, אם אין עניין למקומות, דלא מתעשרי דכתיב אלוהיהם. The Master said above, the verse is speaking of vessels that were used by the Gentiles for idol worship. The Gemara asks, isn't it written, you shall destroy all the places? Deuteronomy 12:2, indicating that the verse is not referring to vessels. The Gemara answers, if the halacha stated in this verse is not applicable for the matter of places that were worshipped, it must apply to another matter. The verse cannot apply to the places themselves, as they are not rendered prohibited. As it is written, you shall destroy their gods upon the high mountain, Deuteronomy 12:2, indicating that one is not required to destroy the mountains that are themselves their gods. Something that is attached to the ground is not rendered forbidden, and therefore even if idol worshippers worship the mountain itself, it does not need to be destroyed.